It comes on the heels of the rise of a large, very vocal movement, the new atheist movement, which really espouses an ideology that is militant atheism. Okay, so what's militant atheism? It's the idea that not only is religion false, in other words, it's anti-rational, it's logically untrue, it's belief without evidence, but religion is also harmful as well, and it's something that we need to eradicate from the world. So those are kind of the two central ideas of militant atheism, right? It's not only are we against this belief because it's incorrect, but we actually think it's harmful and destructive. And so there's a need for an academic response to this movement and to actually understand it from a theological perspective, but also looking at the history of this movement, the cultural origins of this movement, the ideology behind this movement. There's a lot that can be said on this topic, but I'll just share a few kind of scattered thoughts about what I think are some of the most important aspects to take home from this perspective. So when you look at the new atheist movement, as I said, it's characterized by this very aggressive attitude towards religion, the idea that religion is something abominable, repulsive, evil. So for example, you see out of the famous ideologues of the new atheist movement, Richard Dawkins has this famous statement where he says that teaching your child religion is a form of child abuse. It's worse than being sexually assaulted. So in other words, just as a person who commits child abuse should go to jail, the logical implication of what he's saying is that religious believers are criminals because they're inflicting upon their child religious beliefs. Similarly, another one of the new atheist ideologues says that if I could wave a magic wand, get rid of either rape or religion, I would not hesitate to get rid of religion. So that's the level of venomous level of rhetoric that's being directed towards religion. So the call for the eradication of religion is not new. We've seen these ideas before. Probably the worst manifestation of atheism as a totalitarian ideology, as a militant ideology that resulted in attempts to eradicate religion and religious believers is in the form of Soviet atheism. So many of us may not be familiar with the history of what happened under the Soviet Union, but if you look at the history of Soviet communism, a central idea that was espoused by Karl Marx is that religion is the opium of the people. Lenin referred to religion as unutterable vileness, right? It's just something absolutely disgusting and evil. And in the 1920s, actually, the Communist Party created something called the League of Militant Atheists. It set up institutions that were designed to promote the idea that religion was scientifically falsifiable. And Peter Watson is a historian who himself is atheist, but he writes about this in his work called The Age of Atheism. Okay, so he talks about what was the history of promoting atheism, and he writes very frankly about the aggressive campaign that Soviet atheists undertook to eradicate religion. He says there was a series of crusade-like polemics to suppress religion and replace it with scientific atheism. Yemelin Yaroslavsky said, "It is our duty to destroy every religious world concept. If the destruction of 10 million human beings, as happened in the last World War, should be necessary for the triumph of one definite class, then that must be done, and it will be done." So what happened? So in 1922, Patriarch Tikhon wrote a letter to Lenin. He said thousands of clergy were being killed. More than 100,000 believers had been shot. People who were religious priests were subjected to all sorts of horrific types of torture. Basically strapped to the wheel of a steamboat, mangled by rotating blades, buried alive. All sorts of methods of torture were used, and this was directed at the Christian and Muslim communities under the Soviet Union. So The number of Russian Orthodox churches in a short period of time went from 54,000 just to 4,200. The number of Islamic institutions went from 220 in 1922 just to 7 in 1927. And Stalin himself, he had a lot of virulent rhetoric about Islam. He said Islam was something that had to be destroyed.